We have with us today one of my absolute favorite Georgia writers, New York Times bestselling author Robert Gwaltney. Robert describes his work as spellbinding fiction with a Southern drawl. I absolutely love that, Robert. Robert is the author of the award-winning novel The Cicada Tree and the soon-to-be released Sing Down the Moon. He is the 2023 Georgia Author of the Year for first novel. I think I got that right. We have a lot of ground to cover today. We'll see how much we get through in the short time we have. But Robert, I want to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I'm happy to be here.
So, for those who don't know you yet, how would you describe your writing?
Oh gosh, well, I think that first and foremost, I'm a writer of literary fiction that seems to cross genre. It's Southern in nature, of course, in the Gothic tradition, elements of magical realism. Up until this point, thematically, my writing has delved into coming of age, themes of obsession, transformation, identity, legacy of the past, as a lot of Southern fiction does, and of course, touching on elements of social, class, and race.
Yeah, that's good. You have such a unique writing style, and I have told you before that I am so enamored and in awe of your profound sense of voice in your writing. I,
Thank you.
I think it's very commendable. When did you first know you wanted to be a writer?
Yeah, I think a lot of writers, and I'm sure you're asked this question as well. People want to know when you knew you wanted to first be a writer. But I think that I remember when I knew it was first possible to be a writer. And that was back years ago, centuries ago in the third grade at Southside Elementary School in Miss Glenda Morton's third grade class. And on this particular day, I had a classmate. Her mom, his name was William Graham, and his mother's name's Brenda Graham. And what I didn't know is that she was a writer. We knew the Grahams. I'd been to their home, but I had no idea that she had this life as a writer. She had written a book called Stone Gables, and she talked about her life as a writer, and I was mesmerized by that. Up until that point, for me, a boy in rural South Georgia, writers, I imagine, lived in far off places like New York City, places I probably would never have an opportunity to go. So it was that moment, that day, where it sort of clicked with me that there was a possibility that I might could one day be a writer. And I think that from a young age, I think that I always felt like I was a storyteller. I just wasn't certain how I would go about telling stories.
So when did you feel like you when was the what was the moment, the turning point when you felt like you were a real writer, like you had finally arrived, as they say, as a truly accomplished the truly accomplished writer that you are?
We might have, I think we froze there for a second.
Okay,
Can you
sorry.
hear me now? No,
I
that's fine. That's fine. Technology, but this is great. It's funny. I think that I'm still waiting to feel.
yeah.
I joke. I think it took me a very long time to proclaim the fact that I felt that I was a writer. Um, I think, as early as high school, I would enjoy writing essays. In college, I took some creative writing classes, but I didn't major in writing. Um, it wasn't until on or about 2000 that I decided that I would start taking things seriously. So I think that for me, it's been a long journey. It wasn't until I had an excerpt from the Cicada Tree before the Cicada Tree came out that was published in a small literary journal that I felt comfortable saying that I was a writer. It seemed to me to be an arrogant thing to proclaim. I'm a writer, but I think it wasn't until then, when I actually had a publishing credit under my belt, that I felt comfortable saying that. But a thing that I tell everyone when I have an opportunity to speak with writers, especially those individuals who are just starting out, if you write, you're a writer, whether you are published or not. And I just never had that confidence early on to proclaim myself a writer until I actually was in print.
Yeah, I get it. But I tell people sometimes. I remember I was at a luncheon, and it had nothing to do with writing, but the person sitting next to me said, "Oh, it must be wonderful, being a writer." And I said, "You know what? Everybody in this room has a story to tell." right? Everybody. It's just a matter of committing to, putting pen to paper, so to speak, or
Yeah, I agree. You
you
know,
know,
everyone has a story to tell. I think everyone has at least one book in them.
yeah, I agree. I agree. So you mentioned the book early on that had an influence on you, and the writer early on that had an influence on you in South Georgia. Can you tell us a little bit about who or what really has helped shaped your voice when you were starting out? Who are your would you consider to be your role models, so to speak?
So, f finding your voice, oh my gosh, that was a long and hard row to hoe for me. I knew, of course, that I wanted to be a writer. After I moved to Atlanta from Tallahassee, back in 2000, I really started to seriously dig in around 2003. Started to play in the creative sandbox, and I didn't know what sort of writer that I was going to be. Of course, there was never any question that writing within the Southern landscape um, would not be an option. I always knew that there would be some part of my southernness that would make its way onto the page. I had this initial idea that I'd be a humorous writer, like a memoirist, maybe like Augustin Burroughs. Of course, it turns out that I wasn't, quite as funny as I thought I was. I would think I probably early on influences in regards to what I wanted to read and what ultimately shaped my voice as a writer was the Bronte sisters. I started off with them. I discovered Gothic. Then I discovered the Southern Gothic, Tennessee Williams initially, his plays. And from there, of course, I was fascinated with Truman Capote's debut novel, Other Voices, Other Rooms. Um, I think that um, probably says in Great Expectations, a work of Charles Dickens. One of my all-time favorite characters is Miss Havisham, the jilted bride, who is left on her wedding day, and she languishes the remaining of her days, wearing her wedding dress with the wedding banquet table laid out. So it's that peculiarity, I think, that the English Gothic, which really supports and underpins the Southern Gothic, I think it's all of those things, really. But it wasn't until I started to write a book that led me to the cicada tree that I really found my voice. And that probably wasn't until around 2007 where I really thought, oh, okay, this is who I'm going to be. This is the writer that I'm going to be. And of course, it's ever evolving. I think that, I'm quite a different writer from when I began writing the cicada tree to where I ended the cicada tree. Um, Certainly learned a lot. I grew a lot when I wrote the second book that's going to be coming out. And I feel that I'm a little bit of a different writer now that I'm working on my third project.
Yeah, which I would love to hear more about in a few minutes. Is there what is it about? I grew up in the South as well. What is it about the South, in your opinion, that lends itself so readily to Gothic writing?
Yeah, I mean, I think every place is special. I think character, place often is a character. I think that what's so unique about the South is its troubled past. I think, there's this romanticized version of the South, what people think the South is. And then, of course, there are those harsh realities. There's there was slavery, racial and class disparities. So there's that balance of the the romanticized version of the South with the harsh realities of the South, I think, which really lends itself to to the Gothic tradition with the Southern spin on it. That where you have an opportunity to dig into those deeply, heavily flawed characters, crumbling Southern mansions, elements of the supernatural, um, deeply flawed individuals, all of those things. Strangely enough, I seem to be drawn to.
No, I get it. I get it. I definitely get it. Yeah. So one thing I'm always curious about when I talk to writers, I'm curious about how they write, their writing environment. What does your typical writing day look like? I know you work full time, so you have to sort of find the right times to write. And I think you have shared in the past that you get up early in the morning and write. But can you talk a little bit about what your typical writing day is like, how you prepare yourself to write. Are there any special things you do? Any special places where you write? Things like that that other
Sure. So,
writers
well,
and readers might benefit from.
so I'm sitting in my office in my space where I write. My writing desk is over there to the left. So this is the space that I write in. And like you said, like most writers, I have a day job, and of course I have to find the time in all those hours between to be able to write. I love writing on the weekends. And what I love most about writing on the weekends is that I don't have the press of a work day down upon me. So I'm able to, so on the weekends, I'm up by 7. I let myself stay in bed till 7. Lots of dark roast coffee. I'm in the writing chair by 7:30, and I write until probably about 2 or 3, depending. So Saturday, so I'm a weekend writing warrior in many respects, but during the week, when I'm in the midst of a project, it's getting up about 4:30, writing till about 6:30, and then getting ready and heading off to work. I have this electric fireplace, so flame for some reason is important to me. I like at least one candle's lit, the fireplace is on. I'll have Alexa play fireplace crackle, just so I have a little bit of
Yep,
white noise in the background. Sometimes when I'm early on in a project, music is really important. So I'll sort of compile a playlist, sort of get myself emotionally prepared to begin to write. I'll listen to a song or two that I think aligns with the theme or tone of the chapter that I'm working on. When I really get into the work and I'm able to find myself on the page where I need to be emotionally, then I really don't have to listen to music as much. But music is so important very early on for me in discovering the world that I'm writing.
sure. Yeah, I've talked to a lot of writers who intentionally choose music that is thematically aligned with what they're writing or with the mood that they're writing in, or and that, music can be very important. And I've also talked to quite a few writers who like lighting candles. There's something about
Mhm.
candles that,
Yeah, that creative flame, I think. And I don't know what it is about that open flame, but it's important to me. The weekends I have a few more candles lit than I would during the week. But yeah, it's important to me. The mood. And I don't want an open window. I don't want to see out into the world. I find it distracting.
interesting. Aside from music, do you find noise in general, background noise, aside from the crackle and aside from music, do you find background noise distracting or can you tune it out?
It's been a journey for me how I would write. Initially, when I started to write and I was going to be serious about it, I had to have complete silence. So I would write with like noise cancellation headphones on. Things evolved. I could write in the world, writing in coffee shops.
Yeah.
Then the pandemic happened. And so I have grown to love writing in my office space. So it's been an interesting evolution. Now I think it would be really hard for me to get out into the world and write in public. One of the reasons is that I love to be able to just roll out of bed in my
Right.
sweats, brush my teeth, throw some water on my face. Doesn't matter what I look like, and I just stay here. I don't have to worry about leaving my computer if I have to go to the restroom or get more coffee. I just have full reign here. So it's more convenient. I actually save time. And I'm able to sort of walk around. I can talk to myself. I can record. I'll actually record passages of the things that I've written just to put an ear to it, which would be really something challenging for me to do out in public. It
Sure.
would be rude for me to do out in public.
Yeah, people might
So
think
for
you're crazy.
now, yeah, they might think I'm crazy, which I probably am.
Yeah. Do you outline heavily or do you discover the story as you go along?
Well,
Some
I
combination of the two?
live in the story in my head for a very long time, and I'm always thinking about the story. It's important to have a working title. I have from the very beginning. It seems to give for me, some substructure to the work. So a title's very important. Um, the voice, the character, where the place is going, where the story is going place. Um, I need to know the framework. I need to know those guideposts to write toward. But I don't enjoy knowing everything that's going to happen. It's part of
Mhm.
the fun is really getting the writer from one guidepost to the next. So I never know everything that's going to happen. When I started to write the second book that's coming out, I thought that I had lived in my head long enough and let it percolate long enough to really have a strong sense of the journey that I was going to be on, and I didn't really. I mean, it ended how I thought that it would end, but the in-between places surprised me. And I think that for me, that's part of the joy of writing, discovering as I go.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the way I write. I can't, in the sort of the writer parlance, I'm definitely a pantser, not a plotter. Um, so I'm just curious, do you, when you finish a book, do you miss living with your characters, or do they continue to live with you after you finish writing the book? And even when you've started writing the next book, are they still with you? Do they still speak
Yeah,
to
they do. I mean, I do miss them. When I finished writing the second project and I started to work on the work in progress that I've got going now, it was very hard for me to get that voice out of my head. And the second book was present tense. This next book is past tense. So it was really hard to make that shift, and the voices were still talking to me.
you?
Um, I'm about 30,000 words into the work in progress. And so the Sing Down the Moon had been sort of put to the side for a while. So it was very interesting to come back to it to begin copy edits and to begin page proofs. I actually just sent off the final round of page proofs today to the publisher for Sing Down the Moon. So the characters are with me. It was a very interesting process to go back through and read the book again. Um, uh,
Yeah.
but it took a while. It did take a while for me to leave them behind and find the new characters on the page for this new book.
Yeah. Do you like the editing and the page proofing and all the stuff you have to do after you finish
I,
the creative part of the writing?
I like editing. I don't mind editing because there are already words on the page. It's quite a different experience facing a blank page. As it is a page that already has life on it.
Sure.
So I don't mind editing it. I don't like the super detailed copy edit piece of it. But I do enjoy overall editing. It's very tedious. I've had to read this second book these last couple of weeks, like maybe three times again, and it's just laborious, line by line, word by word. And it's fascinating how the eye can trick you, where you think what you're reading is what you meant to say, and when in fact it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it's a tedious process. I don't enjoy the line edit level of scrutiny, but I do enjoy already having words on the page.
Yeah. I think I've asked you this before, and I do not remember what you told me, but are you part of a writing critique group?
So I have it's evolved over time. I have a critique partner that I've written with for gosh, maybe 20 years now. His name is Jeff Blocker. There were three or four of us, and it's just dwindled to the two of us. So he and I exchange pages every couple of weeks. But I also have some beta readers, so other authors that will are kind enough to read pages as I go along. So there's several places. It's not a concentrated group. It's sort of a community of people who will support me as I go.
Sure. Yeah, I think that the word community is really important. I'm part of a critique group. There were six of us. One member died. One member dropped out because he just said it was a little too rigorous. So there are four of us now. But I love them so much, and I don't know what I would do without them. I think that being part of a small community like that and sharing your work is can be really, really important.
Agreed, agreed. It gets so lonesome, and I think that as a writer, I think if you're fortunate to have good instincts, you have a sense that you're on track, but you don't ever fully know.
Yeah,
So it's so important to have other people weigh in, help to provide that guidance. I know it certainly is for me.
yeah. I want to hear a little bit about the cicada tree, but something just occurred to me, Robert. If you look right here on my shelf behind me. That is a Silvertone, a fully functional Silvertone radio. And a Silvertone radio played a role in the cicada tree, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there is, yeah, from Sears and Roebuck.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just happened to think of that. I was looking at it and I said, "Oh my gosh, there's a Silvertone." Anyway, tell us about the cicada tree. What sparked the idea? And for those who have not read it, just tell us a little bit about it. It's an absolutely wonderful book. And
Thank
how did
you.
you come about deciding? You referred to it a little bit earlier, but just tell us a little bit about what sparked the idea and your cicada tree journey, if you will.
Gosh, it was a long one. So the Cicada Tree, work of Southern fiction, elements of magical realism. I'd started to write it, and it takes place in 1956. So the quick elevator pitch is this: the summer of 1956, 11-year-old Annalise Newell, a whiskey drinking piano prodigy, encounters the wealthy Mayfield family, a family that possesses a supernatural beauty that others refer to as that Mayfield shine. It's this initial encounter with the Mayfields that stirs obsession within young Annalise, setting her down a path of dangerous games and manipulation, all of that ultimately culminating in a cataclysmic plague of cicadas. So then I jokingly always say it's a feel-good story.
Yeah.
um, so the Cicada Tree started actually as a different book. I'd started to write a novel that was going to take place in the 1970s from the point of view of a young male protagonist. And the male protagonist's mom, her name was Annalise Newell Darlington. And she was so fascinating to me about several chapters in. And it was when I was writing that book that I found my voice. And it was when I was writing a scene with her. And she was so interesting to me. She was making horrible parental choices. Um, and, and I loved her on the page, and I just began to wonder what she might have been like as a young girl. So I just started to explore those questions, started to talk to her. And that book led me back to 1956 to when she was 11 years old, and it led me to the Cicada Tree. So that's really how that book came to be.
Yeah. So she spoke to you.
She did.
She said, "Hey, wait a minute. I want you to write about me."
What about me? I'm much more interesting than my son.
That's great. So tell us about your upcoming book, Sing Down the Moon.
Sure. Again, a Southern Gothic tale of generational trauma. Of course, there's desire, elements of identity. It follows a 16-year-old cursed teen heir to a mystical drug trade that binds the living to the dead. Her name is Leontine Sky. She lives on the marsh with her mother, Eulalie. It really is sort of a blending of myth and memory, and it really ultimately explores the cost of inheritance and the peril of self-erasure, in her very haunted world. I do have this elevator pitch. I'm not even. It's interesting. You have to learn how to talk about your books. So I've not even, from memory yet, even begun to talk about what this book is about. Um, so I'm going to try it on you.
Okay.
Okay. So 16-year-old Leontine Sky, she's bound by blood and legacy to an ancient fig tree on a Georgia island called Good Hope, a tree that feeds the dead and poisons the living. As her mother disintegrates before her very eyes, Leontine must confront a birthright that will take everything from her as it has her mother, her bones, her breath, her very being. And when a mysterious stranger arrives on Good Hope, Leontine's memories slowly resurface, and with those memories, the discovery of a chilling truth. Rejecting her legacy will shatter the fragile balance between the living and the dead, forcing Leontine to choose: save the island and those she loves, or save herself. So that's the gist of Sing Down the Moon.
Okay. I want to read it. I'm ready to read it. I can't wait. I absolutely can't wait. Um, can you share with us at all what you're currently working on, or is it still top secret?
Well, I can share a little bit about it. Another Southern Gothic book, but what's really interesting about this novel is that I'm telling it from the point of view of a male protagonist. His name is John Mark Alderbranch, it doesn't really take place in any particular year. Just like Sing Down the Moon, I didn't give it a year because of sort of the otherworldly quality of the book. So I'm really not in the realm of historical fiction anymore because I'm not writing about specific times.
Yeah.
But the working title to the work in progress is called All the Kingdoms of the World. And it's about a young boy. He's born sort of on the fringe of society because of this condition that he has. He possesses sort of this possesses violet eyes, which is something that is revered and both reviled because what comes with these violet eyes is a level of sensitivity. Um, uh, they live in different ways. They're very talented, but folks really don't look upon them favorably. And rather than this story, the story is a bit of an odyssey. It begins where the place where he is born, small town in Georgia, takes him to this camp where other boys who were 13 with this particular condition have to go. And then it takes him to the highest elevation in the mountains of Georgia, where the story concludes.
Wow.
And I'm about 30,000 words in.
Yeah. So that book, for example, is there anything? I mean, I'm really curious. It's such a fascinating premise. Is there anything you can share about what sparked the idea for that? Was there anything in that you had read about or experienced or seen that just led you to decide to write about that? Because it just sounds so fascinating.
Well, I think that I think that there are things that I think thematically that I just wanted to explore. Maybe perhaps some of the own challenges that I've experienced in my life growing up a peculiar child in rural South Georgia. So I think that perhaps maybe that really where the idea initially came from, just that. And I think all artists, all creative people, um, don't feel, I think, feel marginalized in some way. That I think we're great observers. And so we always are sort of looking and listening. So we don't always feel like we're a part of the world that we're living in. So I
Yeah,
think that probably where I am now in life and what I want to write, I think that that's probably what led me to the beginning of the story.
yeah, that's great. So you mentioned Truman Capote earlier. I believe in a lot of Truman Capote's writing, there are elements of people that he really knew. Are there elements of people from your life that are actually incorporated into your characters? Like Anne,
Not,
for example?
well, not really. I think there are composites. I think that every character I write probably has bits and pieces of me in some way,
Yeah,
because I only know my own humanity, the dark and the good, I think. But there are people I've known along the way. So I never really take a real person, and incorporate them into the book. They always sort of seem to be composites. They're their very own people.
yeah.
I
So
only did that
anybody
with
coming up to you saying, "Okay, Robert, I know that's
That's me. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. There was one character in the Cicada Tree, it's not even a secondary character that that probably was inspired by someone that I knew, but someone who's long gone from this world. So I felt comfortable sort of resting my hat on that character description. But for the most part, none of my characters are based upon people that are living or anyone that I've really known.
yeah." What's the most memorable response that you've had from a reader? I know you've gotten such great feedback from readers, but is there one response that you found very memorable and touching?
Well, it's interesting. I think I tend to, and maybe this is human nature. I think you tend to remember the bad things people say more than the
Most
good.
definitely. But I'm not going to
Um,
ask you what was the really bad one, unless
no,
you
I
want
want
to
to.
share it.
But there was one gesture I thought that was really lovely, and I was at a book event, and a woman came in and she had read The Cicada Tree, and there are all these post-its and sticky notes sticking out of the book of things that she had loved about the book,
Yeah,
and that I found that really touching. And there was I was at another author's book event, and she happened to have the Cicada Tree with her while I was at this book event. And before it started, she said, "Can I read something to you from your book? Something that touched me, something that reminds me of my grandmother." And so I said, "Of course, please do." So I thought that was really lovely. I think that um, there are those moments like that come to you, make it all worthwhile. All the hours that you spend alone, all the self-doubt and insecurities certainly
Sure.
make it well worth it when there are people kind enough to share how their work has moved you in some way.
Yeah, I remember the quote, and I'll get it wrong, and I don't remember who originally said it, but teach a person to read, and they will benefit from a lifetime of pleasure. Teach a person to write, and they will be forever consumed with self-doubt.
Yes, that's so true.
And I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I definitely get it. So, what do you wish you had known when you first started writing that you know now, if anything?
Oh gosh. Well, I think that I knew that there would be rejection along the way, and I knew that I didn't think that it would be easy. I think that what I really didn't know is just how subjective it all is. That
Mhm.
that and I think I learned that when the Cicada Tree was out on submission. You would have an editor who would say, "Oh, I really I love the women's voices. I really responded to it." Then the next editor would say, "Oh, I didn't really respond to the voices of the female characters as much. Oh, I love the magic." The next person, "Oh, I love the magic, but I wish that it had started sooner." So it is so subjective. Everyone reads the story differently, and everyone responds to it differently. So I think I think that has really surprised me a great deal, that there really is, that there's value in every work, in every book.
Mhm.
People are just going to respond to it differently. I think that though I started back in the early 2000s, I think that maybe I wish that I had maybe even started a little sooner than that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
I also didn't know how hard it was or how hard it was going to be to get a book out into the world and for it to get just a little bit of notice.
Yeah.
There's so much noise. I joke and say that, you can depend on two things in life, death, and that every Tuesday a new batch of books is going to make its way out
That's
into
right.
the world. And,
Yeah.
and every writer wants to get just a little bit of attention to their book. They want to be read, of course.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that has surprised me along the way. When this ignorance was bliss for me, I didn't know what I didn't know, and there's still a lot of things that I don't know. But I think that it's easier. I think it's easier to be more fearless when you're dumb to the world.
I understand. The barriers to entry for writers have become so low.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much out there. Yeah, it's a challenging time for writers in a lot of ways because there's so much out there. But I do think it's great that for people who want to write and want to get a book out there, it's probably easier than it's ever been to. But it's very hard to get traction.
Yeah. There are many ways, people can make their way into the world with their stories.
Yeah.
So that is the great thing. But you're right, traction, that's one of the most challenging aspects. And and there's no it's just this peculiar sort of alchemy. It's a little bit of luck. It's a little bit of that, this, a little bit of that. Um, just lightning strikes in the most peculiar places.
Yep. It really does. Um, is there anything else you would like to share with us? Before you answer that question, one thing I just wanted to mention to you, Robert, is one thing I really respect. There are a lot of things I respect about you as a writer, but I also really respect that you care so much and devote so much time and energy to what I call literary citizenship. You are so good at promoting other people's work, and you have given of yourself so much. You know, I know you wrote a little blurb for one of my books, which I'm so
Mhm.
grateful for, and you have participated in other people's book events and things like that. And I just think that's so wonderful. It's so easy to become self-consumed when you're a writer and to become so insulated and isolated, and that's not you. And I really respect that about you a lot.
Th- Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm just so proud to be a writer and to be part of the community. I mean, it's all I ever wanted was to have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Um, and I sure as heck don't have to be at the head of it. I'm
Right.
just glad to be there, to be able to pull up a chair with everyone else. So I think that I'm so proud to know talented people. And I love to surround myself with people who are telling stories and who are talented. I think that, being able to be in that community, you have an opportunity to learn so much from all the people that you encounter. And it's just very inspiring to me to be able to see the good work that other people are doing because it helps push me forward in the work that I do.
Sure. Sure. So back to my earlier question, is there anything else that you would like to share with us today anything that we haven't covered that you would like to share?
Well, I'm really excited about this second book, but I'm also very terrified about a second book. It's that sophomore book that's making its way out into the world, but it makes its way into the world March 3rd, 2025. So I'd love to invite everyone who might be in the area to go to the Georgia Center for the book on March 5th, which is a Thursday at 7 p.m. to come out for the launch of Sing Down the Moon.
Very good. I will put it on my calendar and we'll make sure that we get the word out. So how can readers buy your books and how can they learn more about you?
Sure. So there's my website, robertlgwaltney.com, and I will be updating that pretty soon once I have the book cover art for the new book. But my books can be purchased where all books are purchased. And I certainly hope that folks will visit their independent bookstores. You can order anything online from independent bookstores. They will get that book for you. And of course, for those individuals who might be in communities where there are not independent bookstores, of course, there are those online opportunities as well.
Sure. Great. Robert, I cannot tell you enough what a pleasure it's been to spend time with you today. This has been really wonderful. I look forward to reading Sing Down the Moon
Thank you.
and your third book, whatever it ends up being titled when it ultimately comes out. And for all of you out there watching this, if you haven't gotten to know Robert's writing, please do. He will not disappoint. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you, Mike.